Admiral Zekthar stood on the bridge of his massive warship and stared at the blue planet below him through the clear metal window. Earth looked peaceful from space with its white clouds and deep blue oceans, but something was very wrong with this picture. His sensors showed no ships in orbit around the planet. No radio signals came from the surface. No lights glowed from the night side of the world. The planet that had once buzzed with the activity of 8 billion humans now sat, silent as a tomb. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council had given humanity a simple choice: stop expanding into new star systems or face the consequences. The humans had been spreading too fast across the galaxy and taking up space that other species needed. They built colonies on worlds that the Council had marked for other races. They mined asteroids that belonged to ancient civilizations. Worst of all, they refused to follow the rules that kept peace between the stars. Captain Jake Morrison had been the human who spoke for his species during those final talks. Zekthar remembered the man well. Morrison had short brown hair and calm blue eyes that never showed fear even when facing the most powerful military force in the galaxy. He had listened to the Council's demands with a straight face, and then given his answer in simple words that still echoed in the alien's mind. Morrison had said that humans would choose their own path among the stars, and that no council would decide their fate for them. The Council had expected the humans to fight, back with their crude weapons and small fleets. They had prepared for a short war that would end with human surrender and proper control over the expanding race. Instead, the humans had done something that no species had ever done before. They had simply vanished from known space without firing. A single shot in anger. Zekthar's fleet had arrived at Earth expecting to find a world ready for battle or a planet filled with people begging for mercy. Instead, they found empty cities and silent spaceports. The orbital stations that had once protected Earth hung dark and powerless in space. The moon bases that humans had built showed no signs of life. Even the space elevators that connected the planet to its orbital rings had been shut down and abandoned. Council Arbiter Velnara materialized on the bridge as a shimmering hologram. Her 4 arms moved in patterns that showed deep concern, while her large eyes reflected the blue light from Earth below. She had been trying to understand what happened to the humans for months, without success. Every human world in every star system controlled by the species showed the same pattern: complete evacuation without any signs of struggle or panic. The investigation teams had found something even more puzzling than empty cities. The humans had not just left their worlds behind, they had taken almost everything with them. Factories had been dismantled piece by piece. Computer systems had been wiped clean of all data. Even the garbage dumps had been emptied and cleaned. It was as if humanity had spent years preparing for this moment and had planned every detail of their departure. Dr. Cordum appeared next to the Arbiter as another hologram. The scientist's tentacles writhed with excitement as he shared his latest findings. His teams had discovered that the human evacuation had not happened quickly. Evidence showed that people had been leaving Earth and the other human worlds slowly over many months. They had moved in small groups so that their departure would not be noticed by Council spies. The most disturbing discovery came from the human space docks. The humans had been building ships in secret for years. Hidden construction sites in asteroid belts had produced vessels that did not match any known human designs. These new ships were larger than anything humans had built before, and used technology that the Council did not recognize. Somehow, humanity had been developing new ways of traveling between stars while pretending to use their old, slower methods. Velnara's voice carried a note of worry that Zekthar had never heard from the ancient Arbiter before. She explained that the humans had left behind only one message for the Council to find. In the ruins of what had once been New York City on Earth, someone had built a simple stone monument. Carved into the stone in 17 different galactic languages were words that made the Admiral's blood run cold. The message read, We heard you coming, and we chose our own path among the stars. Do not follow us into the dark between worlds. We go where councils fear to tread, and where freedom has no limits. Remember that you made this choice for us when you demanded we bow to your will." Zekthar felt a chill run through his scaled skin as he realized what the humans had done. They had not fled in panic or fear. They had planned this disappearance for years and had used the time to prepare for something that the Council could not yet understand. Humanity had not just left known space. They had walked into the unknown regions beyond the galactic rim where no civilization had ever dared to explore. 6 months had passed since the discovery of humanity's disappearance, and the Galactic Council had launched the largest search operation in their long history. Admiral Kessatar commanded a fleet of 500 ships that spread out across the galaxy like a giant net. Every unexplored system and every dark corner of space was being examined for signs of the missing human race. The search had already revealed disturbing truths about how much the Council had underestimated humanity. Captain Roy Sullivan had been one of the last humans seen in Council space before the evacuation. His personal records showed that he had been working on something called Project New Dawn for over 10 years. The project files had been deleted, but computer experts found pieces of data that painted a frightening picture. Commander Nina Brooks had left behind research notes that kept Council scientists awake at night. Her work focused on survival in the harshest environments that space could offer. She had studied how to live on planets with no atmosphere and how to extract resources from dead stars. Her calculations showed that humans had been preparing to survive in places where other species would die within hours. Dr. Lin Zhao's laboratory on Mars had contained the most valuable intelligence that the search teams found. Her research into genetic adaptation and biological enhancement suggested that humans had been changing themselves in ways that the Council had never imagined. Her notes described experiments that could allow humans to breathe different gases and survive radiation levels that would kill most galactic species. The search fleets discovered evidence of human activity in star systems that had been marked as completely uninhabitable. Tracker Yithlak of the Seekers Guild found abandoned equipment on worlds with surface temperatures hot enough to melt metal. Other teams located human tools on frozen planets where the atmosphere was pure poison. Somehow, humans had not just visited these deadly places, but had lived and worked there for extended periods. Each discovery made the mystery deeper and more troubling. The humans had been building secret bases in locations that the Council had never bothered to explore because they seemed worthless. Hidden shipyards floated in the radiation zones around dying stars. Supply depots had been carved into asteroids that traveled through the empty space between galaxies. Research stations operated in the heart of nebulae where sensors could not detect them. General Pete Adams had commanded the human military forces during the final negotiations with the Council. His strategic plans had been found in an abandoned command center on Titan, and they revealed a level of preparation that shocked even experienced Council war leaders. Adams had not been planning to fight the Council's forces. Instead, he had been organizing the complete relocation of human civilization to regions of space that the Council had never mapped. The evidence showed that humans had been studying Council technology and tactics for decades. Every piece of equipment that the Council had shared with humanity during peaceful trade agreements had been taken apart and analyzed. Human engineers had learned how Council ships worked and had developed ways to build better versions using materials that were easier to find in the outer regions of the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Carter's personal logs revealed the most unsettling information of all. She had been in contact with species that lived beyond the galactic rim in regions that Council maps marked as empty void. These unknown races had apparently been trading with humanity for years and providing technology that was more advanced than anything the Council possessed. The search teams began finding traces of these mysterious allies in abandoned human facilities. Strange metal alloys that were stronger than anything in Council databases. Computer chips that processed information faster than the best Council technology. weapon designs that used principles of physics that Council scientists did not understand. Ythlak reported discovering human settlements on planets that should have been impossible to colonize. The humans had developed new techniques for creating breathable atmospheres on airless worlds and for generating heat on frozen planets. They had learned how to grow food in soil that was toxic to most life forms and how to extract water from rocks that seemed completely dry. The most disturbing pattern that emerged from the search was evidence that humans had been recruiting other species to join them in their exodus. Several minor races that lived on the edges of Council space had also vanished without explanation. Their abandoned worlds showed the same careful preparation and complete evacuation that marked human sites. Dr. Tony Martinez had been Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, and his research files contained detailed profiles of every species in the galaxy. His work showed which races were unhappy with Council rule and which ones might be willing to join a rebellion against galactic authority. Many of the species that Martinez had identified as potential allies were among those that had recently disappeared. As the search continued, the Council began to realize that humanity had not simply run away to hide in the darkness between stars. They had been building something much larger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The humans had created a network of alliances and technologies that stretched across regions of space that the Council had never explored. The final piece of evidence came from a hidden facility that Captain Sullivan had operated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Deep in the computers that had been left behind, the search teams found star charts that showed routes to parts of the galaxy that were not supposed to exist. These maps revealed that space was much larger and more complex than the Council had ever realized, and that humans had been exploring these hidden regions for years before their disappearance. 2 years had passed since humanity vanished from known space, and the first truly frightening reports began reaching the Council chambers on the capital world of Nexus Prime. Long-range scout ships that had been sent to explore the galactic rim were detecting massive gravitational disturbances in regions that should have contained nothing but empty void and dying stars. Commander Alex Turner had been one of the human engineers who worked on advanced propulsion systems before the evacuation. His research files contained theoretical designs for technology that could manipulate space itself and bend the laws of physics to human will. Council scientists had dismissed these plans as impossible fantasies, but the gravitational readings from the rim suggested that Turner's impossible dreams had somehow become reality. Chief Engineer Kate Williams had left behind technical specifications that made the Council's best experts feel like children playing with simple toys. Her designs showed ways to convert matter directly into energy and to create artificial gravity fields that could crush planets or move entire star systems. The energy readings coming from the galactic edge matched the power levels that Williams had calculated for her most advanced projects. The Council's most sophisticated probe ships were sent to investigate the gravitational anomalies, but what they found defied all understanding of what was possible. The automated vessels transmitted images of structures that stretched across light years of space, artificial constructs that harvested energy directly from black holes, shipyards that could build vessels the size of moons, cities that floated in the vacuum between stars without any visible means of support. Science Minister Drakthor spent sleepless days analyzing the probe data and trying to understand what humanity had accomplished in their exile. The energy signatures showed that humans had learned to tap into the fundamental forces that held the universe together. They were using technologies that could create matter from nothing and destroy atoms by thinking about them. The scale of their construction projects rivaled the output of entire galactic civilizations. The probe ship Eternal Vigilance was sent deeper into the rim territories than any Council vessel had ever traveled. Its mission was to gather detailed information about human activities and to assess the threat level of whatever they were building in the darkness. The ship's artificial intelligence was programmed with every piece of information that the Council had about human technology and psychology. For 3 months, Eternal Vigilance sent back reports that painted an increasingly alarming picture of human progress. The ship detected fleets of vessels that used propulsion systems based on principles that Council physics could not explain. It recorded communications in human languages mixed with sounds that came from species that the Council had never encountered. Most disturbing of all, it observed construction projects that seemed to be reshaping the basic structure of space itself. Captain Sam Rodriguez had been seen as one of the more reasonable human leaders during the final negotiations with the Council. His psychological profile suggested that he would be willing to compromise and find peaceful solutions to conflicts. The probe's recordings showed Rodriguez commanding fleets of ships that moved faster than light without using any known method of faster-than-light travel. He had apparently become something far more dangerous than a reasonable negotiator. The final transmission from Eternal Vigilance contained information that made the Council consider evacuation of their own core worlds. The probe had detected what appeared to be a massive ring structure surrounding an entire star system. The ring was generating energy levels that exceeded the total output of 100 normal stars. Computer analysis suggested that this single installation could power technological projects on a scale that had never been attempted by any known civilization. President Helen Barnes had been the human political leader who formally rejected the Council's ultimatum 3 years earlier. Intelligence reports from before the evacuation had described her as a cautious politician who preferred negotiation to confrontation. The probe's data showed Barnes addressing what appeared to be representatives of dozens of alien species in a council chamber that made the Galactic Council's meeting hall look like a small conference room. Dr. Tony Martinez's voice was detected in the communications intercepts that Eternal Vigilance recorded before it stopped transmitting. Martinez had been Earth's expert on galactic politics, and his disappearance had been noted but not considered significant. The probe's recordings suggested that Martinez had become humanity's ambassador to civilizations that lived in regions of space that the Council had never known existed. The gravitational readings indicated that humans were not just building large structures in the rim territories. They were apparently creating new types of space that operated according to different physical laws. Some of the anomalies suggested that human engineers had learned to fold space-time itself and create pocket dimensions where normal rules of physics did not apply. Admiral Jennifer Park had commanded the human deep space exploration fleets before. The evacuation and her ships had been among the first to disappear from Council sensors. Analysis of the probe data suggested that Park's exploration missions had discovered something in the void between galaxies that had changed humanity's understanding of what was possible. Her fleets were now using technology that could move instantly, across distances that should take years to travel. The most unsettling discovery came when Council analysts realized that the structures being built in the rim territories were not random construction projects. They formed a pattern that suggested humans were building some kind of massive network that connected different regions of space. The energy flows between installations indicated that humanity had created a communication and transportation system that spanned distances larger than the entire known galaxy. When Eternal Vigilance finally stopped transmitting its last message contained encrypted data that Council computers needed weeks to decode. The information revealed technical specifications for technology that could create new universes and destroy existing ones. Humans had apparently moved beyond simply exploring space and had begun experimenting with the fundamental forces that created reality itself. The Council chamber erupted in panic when these reports were presented to the member species. Some demanded immediate military action to stop whatever humans were building before it could threaten known civilization. Others argued for attempting peaceful contact to understand human intentions. A few suggested that the Council should begin preparing for evacuation to regions of space that might be safe from whatever humanity had become in their exile. 3 years had passed since humanity disappeared from known space, and the Galactic Council faced the first real threat to their authority in over 1,000 years. Intelligence reports flooding in from across Council territory painted a picture that made even the most experienced leaders question everything they thought they knew about galactic politics and the balance of power among the stars. General Pete Adams had been the human military commander who organized the evacuation of Earth and all human colonies. Council analysts had expected him to establish defensive positions in some remote corner of the galaxy where humans could hide from Council forces. Instead, Adams had apparently created something that no military mind in the Council had ever imagined. He had built an entirely separate galactic civilization that operated according to principles that challenged everything the Council stood for. The first signs of this new civilization appeared in the border regions where Council space met the unexplored territories beyond the galactic rim. Refugee ships began arriving at Council worlds carrying stories that border. Guards dismissed as impossible fantasies. The refugees spoke of massive fleets that offered protection to any species willing to leave Council space. They described technology that could heal any disease and solve any resource shortage. Most disturbing of all, they claimed that humans were offering membership in a galactic alliance based on cooperation rather than submission to central authority. Admiral Lisa Carter had commanded the human space forces during the final years before. The evacuation and her tactical genius had been respected even by Council military leaders. Intelligence suggested that Carter had spent those years not just planning humanity's escape, but preparing for something much more ambitious. She had apparently been organizing the recruitment of entire species that were dissatisfied with Council rule. The border systems began reporting strange phenomena that Council scientists could not explain. Ships would arrive carrying refugees from failed Council colonies, and these vessels used propulsion systems that made no sense according to known physics. The ships could travel faster than light without generating the energy signatures that Council sensors were designed to detect. They appeared suddenly in star systems without any warning and departed just as mysteriously after delivering their passengers to safety. War Counselor Heckmark led emergency sessions as reports came in from military commanders across Council space. Entire sectors were declaring independence from Council authority, and these rebellions were being protected by defensive systems that rendered Council weapons completely useless. Energy shields that could deflect planet-killing weapons appeared around rebel worlds overnight. Space mines that could disable Council warships without destroying them blocked access to systems that refused to pay Council taxes. Dr. Lin Zhao had been Earth's leading expert on biological adaptation, and her research had focused on helping humans survive in hostile environments. Intelligence reports suggested that Zhao had taken her work far beyond anything the Council had imagined. Possible? Species that joined the human alliance were apparently being offered genetic modifications that could extend their lifespans indefinitely and allow them to survive in environments that would normally be lethal to their biology. The pattern of rebellion spread like a plague across Council territory. Species that had been loyal members of the galactic community for centuries suddenly announced their withdrawal from Council authority. They claimed that humans had offered them something the Council never could: genuine freedom to develop their own cultures and technologies without interference from higher authorities. Worse yet, these rebellious species were being protected by military technology that made Council forces look primitive by comparison. Captain Dan Clark had been one of the human diplomats who participated in the final negotiations before humanity's disappearance. His psychological profile had suggested that he was a reasonable man who preferred peaceful solutions to violent confrontation. Reports from the rebel territories indicated that Clark had become humanity's chief recruiter and was offering terms to alien species that the Council could not match. The rebels were not just receiving military protection from their mysterious human allies. They were gaining access to technology that solved problems the Council had struggled with for millennia. Planets that had been dying from resource depletion were suddenly thriving with new methods of energy production. Species that had been on the edge of extinction were recovering with medical techniques that seemed to work miracles. Most threatening of all the rebels were developing their own advanced technologies that rivaled anything in Council databases. Commander Nina Brooks had specialized in deep space exploration during her service with the human fleet. Her mission reports from before the evacuation showed that she had been investigating regions of space that Council maps marked as empty void. Analysis of current intelligence suggested that Brooks had discovered something in those empty regions that gave humanity access to resources and allies that the Council had never known existed. The Council's attempts to reassert control over the rebellious territories met with failure that bordered on humiliation. Military fleets that approached rebel worlds found themselves surrounded by ships that appeared from nowhere and used weapons that could disable Council vessels without harming their crews. The human alliance seemed to prefer capturing Council ships rather than destroying them, and captured crews were treated with surprising kindness before being released with messages offering them the chance to join the rebellion. Intelligence reports from captured Council personnel painted a disturbing picture of what humanity had accomplished during their years in exile. The humans had apparently made contact with dozens of alien species that lived in the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. These unknown races possessed technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Council could produce. Even more alarming was the discovery that many of these species had been watching the Council for years and had concluded that galactic civilization would be better off under human leadership. President Helen Barnes appeared in broadcast messages that reached every corner of Council space despite all efforts to block them. Barnes no longer looked like the cautious politician who had rejected the Council's ultimatum 3 years earlier. She spoke with the confidence of someone who commanded resources that dwarfed anything the Council could bring to bear. Her message was simple and terrifying. The old order was ending, and species could choose to join the new Galactic Federation, or remain isolated in their shrinking sphere of influence. The most disturbing intelligence came from Council agents who had managed to infiltrate some of the rebel territories. They reported that humans were not ruling their new alliance through force or intimidation. Instead, they had created a system where every member species had a voice in major decisions and access to technologies that improved their quality of life. The human alliance was succeeding because it offered something the Council had never provided: genuine partnership rather than submission to central authority. 5 years had passed since humanity vanished from known space, and the moment that every Council member had been dreading finally arrived. Captain Sam Rodriguez appeared on every communication screen in Council territory, broadcasting from a ship that existed partially outside normal space-time. He no longer looked like the reasonable military officer who had served as humanity's representative during the final negotiations. Rodriguez now spoke with the authority of someone who commanded forces that could reshape the galaxy according to their will. The message that Rodriguez delivered to the Council chambers was both an offer and an ultimatum that echoed the same words the Council had once used against humanity. He announced the existence of the Free Galactic Federation, an alliance of species that had chosen cooperation over domination as the foundation for galactic civilization. The Federation controlled vast regions of space beyond the galactic rim, and possessed technology that made Council science look like the primitive efforts of a developing species. Dr. Tony Martinez appeared alongside Rodriguez in the broadcast transmission, and his presence shocked Council intelligence analysts who had been tracking human activities in the outer territories. Martinez had been Earth's expert on galactic politics and diplomacy, but the man in the transmission commanded knowledge that went far beyond anything he had possessed before humanity's disappearance. He spoke of physics principles that Council scientists had never discovered, and described social systems that solved problems the Council had struggled with for centuries. The Federation's capabilities became impossible to ignore when they demonstrated their technology for the entire galaxy to witness. Ships appeared simultaneously in orbit around every major Council world, and these vessels used propulsion systems that allowed them to travel instantly across galactic distances. The energy readings from the Federation fleet exceeded anything that Council sensors had ever recorded from a single source. Most disturbing of all, the ships seemed to be built from materials that did not exist in any known periodic table. President Helen Barnes addressed the Council directly from her flagship, New Horizon, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest Council warships and seemed to bend space around itself as it moved. Barnes spoke with calm certainty as she explained that humanity had spent their years in exile building something that the galaxy had never seen before, a voluntary alliance of species that chose to work together rather than submit to the authority of a ruling council. The demonstration of Federation technology left Council military leaders stunned and helpless. Admiral Jennifer Park commanded fleets that could disable Council weapons without destroying them and protect rebel worlds with energy shields that made planetary defense systems obsolete. Her ships moved through space in ways that violated every known law of physics and carried weapons that could crack planets but were designed to neutralize rather than annihilate enemy forces. Intelligence reports from Council spies who had infiltrated Federation territory revealed the true scope of what humanity had accomplished during their exile. The humans had not simply built better ships and stronger weapons. They had created an entirely new type of civilization that solved problems through cooperation rather than conquest. Federation worlds enjoyed access to unlimited energy, medical, technology that could cure any disease, and transportation systems that connected distant planets as easily as walking from one room to another. General Pete Adams commanded the Federation military forces, and his strategic genius had transformed the concept of galactic warfare. Rather than fighting battles to destroy enemy forces, Adams had developed tactics that focused on protecting civilians and minimizing casualties while achieving military objectives. Federation forces could capture entire star systems without firing a shot by using technology that disabled enemy equipment while leaving personnel unharmed. The Council's attempts to resist Federation expansion met with responses that demonstrated the vast gap between the two civilizations. When Council fleets attacked Federation outposts, they found themselves facing defensive systems that could relocate entire planets to safer positions in space. Federation engineers had learned to manipulate space-time itself and could move stars and worlds as easily as Council engineers moved asteroids. Commander Nina Brooks had become humanity's chief explorer, and her discoveries in the void between galaxies had provided the Federation with access to resources that made Council territory look impoverished by comparison. Brooks commanded survey fleets that could create new star systems from cosmic dust and establish colonies in regions of space that had been considered uninhabitable. Her teams had mapped dimensions parallel to normal space, where different physical laws allowed for types of construction that were impossible in the regular universe. The most shocking revelation came when Council analysts realized that the Federation had been operating in Council space for years without being detected. Human agents had been working quietly throughout the galaxy, offering aid to struggling colonies and providing advanced technology to species that were suffering under Council rule. These agents were not spies or saboteurs, but representatives of a civilization that genuinely cared about the welfare of all galactic species. Dr. Lin Zhao had perfected medical techniques that could extend the lifespan of any species indefinitely and cure genetic diseases that had plagued civilizations for thousands of years. Her research teams had developed ways to enhance the natural abilities of different species without changing their fundamental nature. Federation citizens could survive in environments that would kill unmodified beings, but they retained their original cultural identities and values. The Federation's recruitment efforts accelerated as word spread about the benefits of joining the human alliance. Entire sectors of Council space declared independence and requested Federation protection. These rebellions were not violent uprisings, but peaceful transitions to a system of government that offered genuine representation and access to technologies that improved quality of life for all citizens. Captain Dan Clark served as the Federation's chief diplomat, and his negotiations with rebel species demonstrated the human approach to galactic politics. Rather than demanding submission or tribute, Clark offered partnership and mutual support. Federation membership came with responsibilities, but also with benefits that far exceeded anything the Council had ever provided to its member species. The Council chambers erupted in heated debate as member species split between those who saw opportunity in the Federation offer and those who viewed the human alliance as a threat to established order. Some Council representatives secretly opened communications with Federation diplomats, while others demanded military action to preserve Council authority. The galaxy was dividing along lines that had nothing to do with species or territory and everything to do with fundamental beliefs about how civilizations should treat each other. The final demonstration of Federation power came when Admiral Park temporarily relocated an entire Council world to a position closer to its star in order, to end a climate crisis that had been threatening the planet's population. The operation took less than 6 hours and was completed without any disruption to the planet's inhabitants. The message was unmistakable. The Federation could take anything they wanted but chose to help rather than conquer. The final confrontation between the Galactic Council and humanity's Free Galactic Federation took place not on a battlefield, but in the ancient chambers where galactic law had been written for over 1,000 years. Ambassador Dan Clark arrived, aboard a ship that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and his presence alone demonstrated the vast technological gap between the two civilizations. Clark no longer resembled the minor human diplomat who had participated in trade negotiations years earlier. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who represented a civilization that had solved problems the Council still struggled to understand. His ship, the Unity, generated energy fields that allowed it to phase in and out of normal space-time, while maintaining perfect environmental conditions for dozens of different species that served as his diplomatic staff. The Council chambers had been hastily modified to accommodate representatives from the hundreds of species that had joined the Federation during the past 5 years. Admiral Jennifer Park commanded the security forces that protected the diplomatic mission, but her soldiers carried no visible weapons and seemed more interested in ensuring the comfort of all attendees than in preparing for conflict. Arbiter Velnara called the emergency session to order with a voice that carried centuries of authority, but also a new note of uncertainty that reflected the changed balance of power in the galaxy. The Council faced a choice that would determine the future of galactic civilization: accept Federation membership as autonomous partners, or remain isolated in their shrinking sphere of influence while the rest of the galaxy moved forward under human leadership. President Helen Barnes entered the chamber accompanied by representatives from species that the Council had never encountered during their millennia of galactic exploration. These beings came from regions of space that Council maps marked as empty void, and their presence revealed how limited the Council's knowledge of the universe had always been. Some of the Federation representatives existed as energy patterns, rather than physical matter, while others seemed to be composed of living metal that shifted and flowed as they moved. The Federation's final offer was presented not as a demand for surrender, but as an invitation to join a system that had proven its effectiveness across vast regions of space. Dr. Tony Martinez explained that the Federation operated on principles of voluntary cooperation and mutual benefit. Member species retained their cultural independence while gaining access to technologies and resources that improved life for all citizens. Captain Sam Rodriguez demonstrated the Federation's capabilities by projecting a holographic map that showed the true extent of galactic civilization. The regions controlled by the Council represented less than 10% of inhabited space, and even those territories were gradually choosing Federation membership over Council authority. The display revealed star clusters and galactic arms that teemed with intelligent life, but remained unknown to Council explorers. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days, as Council members struggled to comprehend the implications of Federation membership. Some species feared losing their traditional privileges and positions of authority. Others worried that human leadership would eventually become as oppressive as Council rule had been for dissatisfied member races. A few representatives demanded guarantees that Federation technology would not be used to impose human values on alien cultures. General Pete Adams addressed these concerns by describing the Federation's governmental structure in detail. Humans served as coordinators and facilitators, rather than rulers in the traditional sense. Major decisions required consensus among all member species, and no single race could impose its will on others. The Federation had grown successful precisely because it respected the autonomy and unique contributions of every civilization that chose to join. Commander Nina Brooks presented evidence of Federation achievements that left even skeptical Council members struggling to find fault with human leadership. Planets that had been dying from resource depletion were now thriving garden worlds. Species that had been on the edge of extinction had recovered and were exploring new frontiers of art and science. Medical advances had eliminated suffering, from disease and genetic disorders across hundreds of worlds. The most compelling argument for Federation membership came from representatives of species that had already made the transition from Council authority to Federation partnership. These beings spoke of freedoms they had never experienced under Council rule, and opportunities for growth that had been impossible within the rigid hierarchies of traditional galactic government. Dr. Lin Zhao demonstrated medical technology that could extend the lifespan of any Council member indefinitely while preserving their mental faculties and physical health. Her research teams had solved the problem of aging without creating the social stagnation that had plagued other long-lived species. Federation citizens could choose their own lifespans and remain productive and creative for centuries or millennia according to their personal preferences. The breakthrough in negotiations came when Admiral Lisa Carter revealed that the Federation had been protecting Council worlds from threats that the Council's own forces could not handle. Hostile alien invasions from parallel dimensions had been quietly defeated by Federation fleets. Cosmic disasters that could have destroyed entire star systems had been prevented by Federation technology. Humanity had been safeguarding their former enemies while offering them the chance to join a better system of galactic governance. As the debate continued, reports arrived that most Council member species had already begun secret negotiations with Federation representatives. The choice facing the Council had become largely academic, since the galaxy had already decided to embrace the human vision of cooperative civilization over the authoritarian model that had dominated galactic politics for centuries. The final vote took place in a chamber that had been expanded to accommodate observers from across the galaxy. Arbiter Velnara cast the deciding ballot that brought the Council into the Federation as an autonomous member state with guaranteed rights to maintain their traditional territories and governmental structures for any species that preferred the old system. Admiral Jake Morrison, the human officer who had delivered humanity's rejection of the Council ultimatum 5 years earlier, appeared in the chamber as the vote was announced. He had returned not as a conqueror, but as a guardian who had prepared a place among the stars for every species that chose cooperation over conflict. Morrison's final words to the assembled representatives carried the quiet satisfaction of someone who had seen his people's greatest dream become reality. He explained that humanity had never left the galaxy, but had simply gone ahead to prepare the foundation for a civilization that could embrace all forms of intelligent life. The Council had acted too late to stop human expansion, but just in time to join the greatest adventure in galactic history.